I'm joined by Shankar Ramamusi, Global Managing Partner of IBM Consulting, Banking and Financial Markets, and Mr. Hans Teslar, Banking Industry Architecture Network. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. The study has been released. Mr. Teslar, can you tell us what BION is, just for the audience?
Yeah, so BION stands for Banking Industry Architecture Network. We are a not-for-profit association, started in 2008, and our mission statement is to help solving the integration issues for financial institutions. So we do that in an ecosystem with our members. So there are banks, there are fintechs, there are integrators, there are consultancies, there are academic partners, and that whole ecosystem is coming up with models that help banks to digitize, to modernize, and so on in a very structured way.
How long did the study take you to complete?
The study was 1 year.
1 year
Yeah,
study.
it's a 1 year study.
And how many participants? What was the target audience?
So there was a survey out under 12,000 consumers.
12,000.
So 12 countries, 1,000 each, and there were around 1,000 C-level bank executives with the survey, and there were 25 face-to-face interviews.
Excellent. And it's online, it's published on a study, the result of the study?
Yeah, it's online.
So I'm also joined by Shankar Ramamuthi, Global Managing Partner, IBM Consulting, Banking and Financial Markets. So my question is, IBM recent study that we mentioned reveals that only 20% of banks have embedded platforms. How do you see the future of embedded finance in the banking sector? What steps should banks take to better integrate this strategy?
Embedded finance. So the actual paper is called Embedded Finance, Creating the Everywhere, Everyday Bank. And as Hans said, we interviewed a number of people around the world, and it very clearly shows that 20% of banks have actually implemented embedded finance initiatives, while about 50%, 51% are in the early stages of considering embedded finance. And it shows that it takes about 6 years of implementation before you start seeing the actual outcomes that a financial institution is looking for. So it's a compelling piece of work, because what it shows is that something like 70% of financial institutions recognize that embedded finance is either core or important to achieving their business objectives. But only 20% have actually implemented embedded finance initiatives around the world, while the others are still working on making it happen. So there's a gap between the potential of embedded finance and where financial institutions are today.
So the second question, that given the pressures from tech firms and regulators, how can banks stay competitive and proactive? Maybe you can relate it to the study.
Absolutely. So the study uncovered a few things that are particularly important for financial institutions. Because like Hans mentioned, we interviewed both banks on the one hand, over 1,000 executives, and over 12,000 customers around the world. And it enabled us to compare the interview data to understand whether consumers and banks are looking at the space in the same way. It turns out there is a meaningful gap between the expectations of consumers on the one hand and where banks are focused from an embedded finance standpoint. If I can highlight a couple of key areas of divergence, banks are focused much more on areas like payment peer-to-peer and buy now, pay later, while consumers are much more focused on things like customer service, mobile wallet, and rewards. So there is a bit of a disconnect between things that customers really value versus banks in terms of where their initial focus is. The other key finding is that banking executives recognize that their technology infrastructure, that's all parts of the stack, including their application portfolio, is monolithic and complex, and it's not nimble and flexible enough to address the needs of an embedded finance model, because it requires microservices and APIs and ability to easily integrate with the value chain of their ecosystem partners. And that's the reason why, as IBM, we are working very closely with Bion to ensure we are able to bring an open model that enables banks, ecosystem partners, global systems integrators, and ISVs to enable this collaboration so that banks can win in the embedded finance world of tomorrow.
Excellent, excellent. So this is a huge work that's been done just in 1 year, but lots of stakeholders will benefit from it. Now, the third question is, how can IBM help financial institutions bridge the gap between banking executives' priorities and their consumers' needs?
So there are three things I would highlight from an IBM standpoint. If I step back and look at it from our chairman and CEO standpoint, there are three things that are top of mind for us. Number one, what we call mandate one, is hybrid cloud computing. Now, why hybrid cloud computing? Our clients, our banking financial services clients around the world, have their own data centers, they've got private cloud, they've got multiple public cloud, they've got hyperscalers, and we need to be able to traverse across all of that to enable embedded finance to happen. And that's the reason why IBM is investing heavily in areas like Red Hat and open standards, including Bion. So that's mandate number one. Ensure that the compute platform is such that our clients can compute and have their infrastructure available across every possible compute platform, including what IBM offers, whether it's the Z Stack, the P Stack, the IBM Cloud, but also all the other capabilities that our clients need. That's mandate number one. Mandate number two is all about leveraging the data and the information and the processing capabilities and augmenting it with technologies like AI and generative AI. That's mandate number two. So much of what we are doing is deconstructing complex systems and inserting AI and generative AI capability to have sophisticated, intelligent workflows, leveraging the natural advantage that banks have from a data standpoint to address the needs of the bank's clients in an embedded finance world. And third, and importantly, it's all about collaboration and ecosystem. So a lot of the investment we are making is around partnerships, whether it be with independent software vendors, organizations like Bion, or other participants, fintechs and the rest, that are participants in the financial services ecosystem, so that we can bring those capabilities together to achieve the objectives of financial institutions.
Excellent, excellent overview. Hans, can I get your take in terms of your stakeholders and the members of Bion, how they have reacted, gave feedback about this report?
Well, there's not that much feedback yet because it's out only for a week.
For a week.
So I think one of the things that I would like to add to what Shankar is mentioning is that if you want to make your IT environment more open, then we within Bion, with our members, we did a proof of concept called the coreless bank. So how can you run a bank without a monolithic core system? And that's not easy. So we have here on the IBM booth a demo where we included everything that's feasible within Open Finance, using APIs and microservices, as Shankar mentioned, to help the financial institutions to come to a best of breed environment. Pick the best KYC solution, pick the best payment solution, that whole ecosystem, Shankar, and then how do you connect that together? So how do you become an agile, composable enterprise? So that's what we done together with them. We built it, so it's not paper or PowerPoint, it's running software. And I think that is a huge achievement from a standards bodies like we are to build the Bion bank that can do those types of things. So that's just to show that the more or less the theory Shankar is just explained can also work in practice together with all the partners that are involved, IBM, at HSBC, and so on. So we had a huge array of members working on that proof of concept. So that is also to help the banks to move into that embedded finance area, but then you also have to have the agile back end to do so. Not only from a technology stack perspective, but also from let's say, a solutions perspective. So that's how we try to link what we are doing with the research paper that is out.
Now the research paper is out 1 week old. Now there will be feedback, as you mentioned. What's the next stage? When will the reiterative process start? What's your expectation of this report?
I think the expectation is that there is a huge interest. Schenker mentioned only 20% of the banks are doing it. So there is 80% looking at it. And it takes 6 years from an idea to make it profitable. So I think the report will be a huge guideline for people how to move from A to B. And then there is a lot, so we have now the high level report, and there is a lot of detailed material out of all the interviews, the surveys, and that will be a sort of next publication. We say, okay, but when we dive deep into this graph, this is the underlying material. So there will be a follow-up on it, and I think there are a huge amount of lessons learned, but also guidance how to move from A to B. So I think we will receive a lot of questions, a lot of help. Can you please help? Can you please explain? So I think there will be busy times ahead for us, for not only IBM, but also Red Hat and Bayern.
Excellent. Last question. Shankar, what would, and Hans, you can chime in too, what would you like the audience of Financial IT to know about the report, and what would you invite them to do going forward?
Great question. Hey, so there are 5 key themes that came out of the report that I want to kind of highlight so everyone's across it. Number one, 70% of the banks that we surveyed, the 1,000 executives we talked to, believe that embedded finance is either core or important to what they're doing. That's finding number one. Finding number two is only 20% of them are actually live with embedded finance, and it's a 6-year journey. So there's a huge amount of opportunity for the other financial institutions to go forward. Number 3, there's a genuine gap between what customers are expecting and what banks are looking to provide, and the study gets into a lot more detail on that. Number 4, monolithic architectures are constraining the ability of financial institutions to unlock the promise and power of embedded finance. And that's where organizations like Bayern come in and Coreless 3.0 come in to help banks deconstruct monolithic architectures to achieve the promise of embedded finance. Number 5, privacy and security are big themes and issues that came up consistently. That's the natural advantage that a financial services institution has over the fintechs, because consumers trust and believe the privacy and security capabilities that a financial institution offers. As Hans said, this is a multi-year journey, and there's a lot of things financial institutions have to do to unlock the promise of embedded finance. And ecosystems such as consumers, such as healthcare, such as e-commerce, such as agri and beyond are areas where embedded finance can be extraordinarily compelling. Financial institutions have to take a measured and systematic path forward to convert the promise into outcomes for their customers and for themselves. We're looking forward to the journey, and I'm looking forward to working with our clients in that journey.
Excellent. Hans, anything to add?
No, I think I cannot do better than Schenker does. So I think he mentioned it all. It's a journey, and we are trying to enable that journey. So it makes people, they don't have to start from a white sheet of paper. So we have already did the thinking for them. Now it's for them to fill in the gaps and tailor it to their needs. I think that's the message that comes out of this paper and what we try to do as Bayern. So.
Great. I appreciate your insight, and I wish you great Sibos 2023. Enjoy the event.
Okay, thank you very much.